Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Board of County Commissioners. We're going to go ahead and call this meeting to order on December 12th, 2024, and we'll start out with the CRA. Commissioner May, if you'd like to begin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Escambia County Redevelopment Agency regular meeting December 12, 2024, 9 o'clock a.m. Please turn cell phone to vibrate silence or the offsetting. The Board of County Commissioners allows any person to speak regarding an item on the agenda. The speaker is limited to 2 minutes unless otherwise determined by the chairman. Was there proof of publication?
The CRA meeting was published in the Escambia County Sun Press on November 28, 2024.
Are there any speakers for public forum?
Not to my knowledge.
Thank you. Technical and public service consent agenda, please.
All right, we have two for your approval. First one, recommendation concerning Community Redevelopment Agency meeting minutes, November 7, 2024. And the second one is recommendation concerning the scheduling and advertising of a public hearing to adopt a resolution creating the Myrtle Grove redevelopment area.
Are there any speakers for the technical public service items 1 and 2? If there are no comments, the chair will
Chairman,
entertain.
I move items 1 and 2 of the consent agenda.
Thank you. Do we have a second? We had a motion, and I need a second.
Second? I'll second.
Second. So we have a motion and a second. Please vote. That passes unanimous. Thank you so much. Budget, finance, consent agenda.
Yes, we have two.
Excuse me? Oh, okay.
We have two for your approval. First one's recommendation concerning residential improvement grant program funding and lien agreements, and the second one's recommendation concerning residential roof program funding and lien agreements.
If there are no comments, the chair will entertain a motion for the budget and finance consent agenda.
So moved, Mr.
We have a
Chairman.
motion. I'll second. Thank you, Commissioner Kohler. We have a motion and a second. Please vote. That passes unanimous. Thank you so much.
No discussion items.
At this time, we have no discussion items. If there's nothing for the good of the order, Mr. Chairman, we stand adjourned and turn it over to you.
Okay, in the interest of time, we'll move right into the agenda. Agenda review, we'll do my intent on this is to do a very, by disclaimer on the agenda, and then if there's anything to pull out, then we'll go from that to the CAL since we're doing that today. Do I need to call the order again? Okay. So as we go through, I'll do the invocation tonight. Anyone like to do the pledge? Steve, can you do the pledge maybe? Or Steve Barry, you'll do the pledge? Thank you. That's all right.
I apologize, there's two.
Any
Yeah.
Steve's good with me.
All right, I apologize.
On the ratifications of the proclamations, I think we've got Mr. Carter. Who's reading the ECAT one? Is it the ECAT director? Thaddeus is, okay. And
Who's
then
reading it, Commissioner Kohler?
It looks like Thaddeus Davenport's going to be reading it this evening.
If you had no one, I'd be happy to read it. I've known
Okay.
Willie all my life.
And then as far as B, it looks like Nikki Powell, our HR director, is reading that. And C, Mr. Humble. So the other two, the last one will be just ratified. All right, any issues with that? I want to go back. Will there be any items that we need to add tonight or that you would want to wait for later? Commissioner Berry, do you want anything to add?
No, sir, not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Commissioner May?
I may have a discretionary, but we'll get it added. My aide will add it through the day and have it a part of the agenda tonight.
All right. Commissioner Stroberger?
No.
Commissioner Hopperger?
I have nothing.
Okay, I don't have anything. I do have two items I need to bring up. I think, Wes, you added them. One is we didn't have the legislative wish list, which they will meet the day before the 9th. Did that get added, Wes? It did? Okay. And the other thing was a scheduling error that I'll need to discuss. It's got to do with ACC2. It's on the 23rd. That's our meeting, and I'd like to move it that morning meeting to the 22nd, if possible. Would that work with everyone's schedule?
Yeah. In February?
Pardon me?
In February?
No, January 22nd. We have a meeting on the 23rd. The schedule, when the ACC came out, our schedule, that hadn't come out, so there's a conflict on that day for me.
Sounds good.
Steve, do you have a problem with moving the 20? Okay, how about Commissioner? Okay, so if we could move the 23rd meeting to the 22nd of January at 0900, that would be helpful. I don't think I have anything else on that. All right, is there anything on written communications that we need, that there will be discussion about? I think this is in your district, Commissioner May? Number 9?
No, it's fine. We can address it tonight. I don't think we have any issues.
Okay.
Unless there's something from code enforcement. I don't see Tim Day here.
Okay, we'll
Do we
move
have-
on.
No.
Obviously, 10, we'll talk about the publications tonight. I imagine, is there going to be any discussion on the public camping, you think, from us, from the community? I know we have a lot of stuff on the agenda tonight, but at 5:31, I think actually we could have some discussion about.
I guess, a conversation is looking at the city policies and our policies to make sure they're in line. I know Commissioner Halberg and myself both represent a large portion of the city. And so it would be, to me, important that we at least have conversation with the city on their policies to align our policies. To
Yeah,
adhere to what the state is saying, because Commissioner Halberg represents more of the city than do, but a large part of my district is the city.
I would agree with that.
Okay. Yeah, and I appreciate legal working on that. I know the sheriff wanted to have that discussion, and thanks, Allison, for you and your team trying to marry up what the sheriff wanted and somewhat align. I think we're close to what the city wanted, so hopefully we'll see where we end up with that. How about 5:33? I think the franchise, there was a couple comments that came up. We'll see if there's some discussion. I already had that conversation with legal this morning. I feel comfortable with the answer I got, but does anyone else? That'll be a 30-year deal if it moves forward. I think it'll be, I know Rick Byers has been working with us, and I think that'll be useful if we get that. Okay, clerking.
Hey, Mike.
Yep, I'm sorry.
I'm curious about the franchise fees.
Okay.
It's 30 years, and if we're redefining something, do we have the ability to negotiate the whole contract?
We do. Allison, would you like to comment on this?
So the current franchise agreement with FPL expires next year at the end of the calendar year. The intent of this was to keep the agreement, the terms, as close to status quo as possible. That, in spite of the fact that we now have a different electric provider for this particular franchise agreement, we have a separate franchise agreement with EREC, which also provides electric services. It is a new agreement, but it was intended and it was written to keep it as close to status quo as far as the rates and the caps and everything as humanly possible within the scope of working with new people.
So I don't understand the franchise fees, and I wonder if they're negotiable, because I'm guessing that FPL might be doing more in the future, providing more services, not just electricity.
So this is intended as an electric and electrical power franchise agreement. There are some I'm not sure exactly what kinds of services or utilities they might be considering, but there are things, for example, already there's a state special act that provides that water goes to ECUA for any new water service. There's already a couple of franchise agreements that we have relative to the provision of natural gas. So if they were to come up with some new service or utility, we would most likely need to engage in a new agreement and a new negotiation with regards to some new service.
Okay.
Okay, we'll see where we end up, but I had to call on that as well, and that's why I reached out to legal, so,
Mr. Chairman?
yeah, please.
So,
Commissioner May.
Allison, so the franchise agreement that we have with FPL is consistent with the franchise agreement they have with the city?
It's my understanding, and I'm not the expert on this, but my understanding is that the city and the FPL franchise agreement has lapsed, and they have not negotiated a new one yet to agreement. I do believe that they are in some sort of negotiation. That's the latest information that I have. To the best of my knowledge, there is not currently an active agreement. I do believe that FPL has defaulted to the terms of their previous, now expired agreement, so they are collecting franchise fees, but I don't believe they have an active agreement.
And so you've not been in contact with the city legal department of how they're negotiating or what their terms are?
There is not currently an active agreement. My understanding is that they were encountering some problems in their negotiation because there was a real estate matter that was getting folded into their negotiations having to do with the fees, and so it was getting a bit convoluted. But I am not engaged in those discussions, so I am not an expert on what's happening.
And again, Mr. Chairman, I'm just, in the spirit of harmony and collaboration, I'm just trying to make sure that as we move forward in many of these issues that we're addressing, that we are working with the city in making sure that the negotiations from the city to the county are step by step, because it puts us in a stronger bargaining position if we know exactly what they're bargaining.
We tried.
They shouldn't get a better deal than we get, and we shouldn't get a
Oh, I
better
see
deal
what
than
you're
they
saying.
get.
We approached the conversation with FPL from the perspective of no changes to what we've been doing, to try to keep it as close to the status quo, and it does keep the rates and the caps the same, so it's not, there's no perceivable change for us when we get to the end of next calendar year, January 1 of 2026, there should not be a perceptible change as far as what the county's agreement with our electric provider is. The city's situation is quite different. I don't know exactly what's going on, and I think they've been in negotiations for quite some time.
Now, Allison, when you and I talked, you mentioned that other counties are moving to a different plan, but we chose to stay with the same plan that we've had historically because we felt like it was a better benefit for us. Can you elaborate on that?
So I don't know that it's a better deal. What you think of as a better deal is certainly up to the board's ideas about what they're after. But yes, FPL did, as FPL has come into the Panhandle, FPL has negotiated some new franchise agreements with different counties. They have gotten away from the idea of caps, but my feeling from the board was that you all wanted to keep the caps and you wanted to keep them the same as what we already have in our existing franchise agreement with what was Gulf Power, now FPL. What they have done in other counties, like Bay County, for example, is they have reduced the amount, the percentage, but eliminated caps. So, for example, go from 5% down to 3.5%, but with no cap. What I understood from my thinking was that the board wanted to keep it as status quo as possible, so keep it at 5%, but keep those caps. So no more than like $10 a month for a residential account. If that's not what the board wants, we can go back to the drawing board, but that was our understanding, and FPL has accepted that we're doing that. It will be a little bit different than some of their other new franchise agreements.
Commissioner Berry, you have a
Yeah,
comment?
thank you, Mike. So, when we talk about the better deal for us or what the revenue source is going to be for us, there's going to be no more revenue that's possible from FP&L. Whatever revenue the county produces is going to be from our citizens. So we can discuss anything, obviously that the majority of the board would like to do, but, any other equations that we see producing more revenue, which they would, is in fact going to be only borne 100% by our citizens. So, and that is, I believe, some of the discussions with the city is, trying to, remove the caps or raise the caps. There's not much wiggle room in the language as far as internal revenue that's going to come from FP&L, the company, that doesn't include money that's going to come directly from our citizens. So it's simply a pass-through to them. If we were to just hypothetically what Madam Council said, if we reduced to 3.5%, but remove the caps, it would be tremendous more revenue. It would increase the county's revenue tremendously. From FP&L's point of view, they're kind of indifferent to that because it's simply a pass-through to them. Ratepayers pay more and they pass more on to us. So it's been my impression from discussions with the board, especially when we went through, some of the changes with Gulf Power to FP&L and, some rate increases a couple of years ago that the board dealt with pretty directly and intimately, that we wouldn't be in the intent of, it's very difficult to spin a change in the franchise that's going to produce more revenue to us in any way other than a fee/tax increase on the citizens. And if that's not our intent, then, I think the program that we have in place is good. But
Steve, certainly, I support the caps because quite frankly, the cost of eggs and groceries are going up. Whatever we do, as you just said, and that's why I wanted to make the correlation to what the city is doing, is passed on to the citizens. I mean, it's not, something that FPL is paying. It's something that the citizens are paying. I can just tell you,
And
I
if
have.
it was a percentage, maybe it would be worth the discussion, because, if we're in a need for revenue, especially general fund revenue, and 50% of it would be FP&L funds and 50% would be from citizens, maybe that's a different discussion. But if we're just talking about 100% of the increased revenue would be coming from the citizens, then it makes it tough.
Which for me, and the constituents that I represent, Commissioner Berry, who can't pay their power bill, who are calling week in and week out, $10, $20 makes a difference. And so, to me, as you said, we're putting it back, it's coming back to our general fund, it's coming back to the county, and then all it would do is make us have to figure out another utility assistance program. And so I'd rather for the citizens to keep it in their pocket than for them to have to come and petition, social services and agencies to help them pay their utility bills. I mean, so to me, it's all in one pot. We should put the least amount of burden on the citizens that we can in this agreement. So that's just my opinion.
Well, I appreciate the discussion. I saw that since it's 30 years. I think it's important that whatever decision comes tonight, that the citizens know that we took it seriously, because it's linked to the franchise fee. It will probably outlive most of us on the board. So, all right, we'll push on from that. Clerk and comptroller's report, anything that needs to be added? Okay. Growth management report, anything from Horace you want to mention quickly? Okay. Then we will push on with that this evening, since there's nothing else. Wes, I
Mr.
think we're up to
Chairman.
consent, right? County Administrator report, I'm sorry.
Sorry. Mr. Chairman, real quick,
Yes,
back on
Commissioner
the
Berry.
GMR, there's an item, I'm sorry, 2-2, not 1-2, 2-2, that I'm going to need to abstain from.
Okay,
There is, the owner in the item is an LLC. The LLC has multiple members, multiple entity members. One of those entities, I have a conflict with one of the principals on one of the entities that's a member of the LLC, so I need to abstain from that.
okay, thank you very much. All right, down to the County Administrator report. Is there any items that you want to talk about, or any of the commissioners would like to notice to be pulled now for this evening? Nothing? Okay. Yeah. All right. Then we'll push on to the second part of this. Okay, I don't know where it ends at. Give me just a second. There may be some discussion, Commissioner May, some folks came up on the 58 through 62. I'll probably lean on you since you're on the affordable housing. I asked Everett to talk to Garrett about those items, so I know there's going to be some discussion from a citizen. Anything that needs to be added on discretionary funds? I think you said you had one you'll bring later? Okay. All right, how about 3-car? Any discussion on that, Wes?
We'll need to hold car 2-54 for Commissioner Berry to abstain.
Okay, car 2-54. All right, thank you. County Attorney's report. I know the last one on the technology policy, I'm sure that's a discussion item. Is there any other items that anyone will want to pull this evening to discuss? Madam Attorney, you have any comments?
Just to point out to the board that the legislative wish list is on the CAR 3, so that may be something that during the day the board wants to put some thought into.
Oh, yeah, we'll definitely have to discuss that this evening as well. Thank you.
And if I have gotten some individual feedback about the technology policy, it's on here as a discussion item for tonight. It's obviously a policy that's specific to the board, so your feedback is really helpful, and we can certainly try to make any tweaks during the day today, or we can just have a discussion tonight and we can bring it back at a later meeting, or we can make verbal changes from the floor and adopt it tonight, whatever you guys wish to do.
in the interest of time in the calendar, unless you want to discuss it now, I'd like to just defer it to tonight, if that's okay. And then the other thing, Wes, are we going to add the discussion for OF8? Was that added? I didn't see.
It's
It is,
on.
okay. So just so the citizens, after they hear what we do this morning, will have an opportunity to make comments. All right, unless there's anything else on the agenda, I think we can move forward to the CAL.
So, Mr. Chairman, so is it your intention to have a discussion of outline Field 8 in the committee of the whole and move an action item tonight, or just further discussion?
Yeah, the committee of the whole discussion this morning, we added it as an action item or discussion item under CAR 3, so the board can ratify or vote on whatever direction the board wants to give us.
I don't think we have to make a decision, but I think we should have the option to. That's why it was added.
Okay.
And so if we didn't add it, it would have to go to the next meeting, and who knows what's going to happen this morning. So that's why it was added, Commissioner May.
Whenever y'all ready to move on, I'm ready.
Well,
go.
it may-
It's been a-
it
it's
may-
been a long
some people
time
in the
coming.
audience may have a warm fuzzy with that. All right, so let's go ahead and move to the CAL, if that's okay. So we haven't had a CAL in quite a while, and I was thinking about this last night. I've never been here for one, so I'm going to lean on Commissioner Berry, Commissioner May, and staff on how to do this. But just out of levity, I thought maybe we should try this, an interesting way. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm here for you. There's going to be some moving. If that doesn't work, we'll do this. Florida cowbell. So to start this off, I think we're going to have UWF, Nicole out here. Hey, I was trying to get the Chick-fil-A, cow to come in, but it was short notice, so I couldn't make that happen. Maybe the next one.
Can't wait
Nicole,
till the
thank
next
you
cow.
so much.
Just
So
do it.
if I can just set a few boundaries of how we're going to do this morning. What I'd like to do, Nicole from UWF did the Haas study. She's going to give us a little brief on that. And then we'll have developmental services talk a little bit about the DPZ. And then each one of the current bidders will have an opportunity to share their comments. If the board would like to comment after each speaker, and then do a summation at the end, I'm fine with that, unless there's another way you guys would like to handle it. Do you have a comment, Commissioner May?
So just those who have submitted will have an opportunity to speak at this committee of the whole, or are we allowing for other people to speak?
One second. Oh, give me that. Yeah, okay, I'll come. I got a comment that it was properly advertised. We missed that, right? So was it properly advertised? Well,
Mr. Chairman, this meeting was advertised on December 5th, 2024, in the board's weekly meeting schedule in the Pensacola News Journal.
okay, thank you. Sorry about that, Administrator. The intent was, going back to Commissioner May, was that we were going to let the people that had a bid speak, and that was the reason for this evening on the discussion for those that were here, that they would be able to speak tonight. And I think historically, that's what I was told, how the cows were run. Is that correct, gentlemen? So is that okay? Any problems
Yeah,
with that?
no, not at all. Typically, commissioners have been able to ask the subject matter experts who
Oh, yeah,
are
I'm
here
fine with that.
anything
Yeah.
that they want to ask.
Absolutely, yeah, I want that. So if I said that incorrectly, I want to make sure that, everyone has an opportunity to ask questions. Okay, Nicole, please tell us who you are and what you did at Haas.
Hi there. Good morning. So nice to be with you. Yes, my name is Nicole Gislason. I'm with the University of West Florida, Haas Center, and for about 30 years now, my team of talented students and colleagues have been analyzing the economy, disseminating information, and measuring economic success in our communities. So, all right, we'll get this slideshow started here. Do I have control? Need more cowbell, right?
I think there we go.
All right. I never miss an opportunity to talk about some of the good work that my talented teammates accomplish, and here are some of the clients and projects that we've worked on in recent years, actually in the last 12 to 16 months. So you see that we have numerous public and private partners as our customers. I've highlighted a few for you. one of which is Navy Federal, and that's, of course, adjacent to outlying Field 8. They're a tremendous employer. They're the largest private employer in our community, and we've done economic impact analysis for them. In fact, 4 of their locations around the United States. You also see here our work in community health and our digital dashboard known as Achieve Dashboard. It's a nationally recognized information tool with over 144 different metrics. And we're very proud of that. But of course, today we're here to talk a little bit about our jobs comparisons. You know, interestingly enough, one of the customers that's not featured here on this particular slide, but only because it's been several years now, we did the original analysis for DPZ and their community master plan. That was a lot of fun. Our team and I had our first opportunity to take a peek at what the possibilities are for that large plot of land. So very, very interesting work, and now we've come here to provide you with yet a new independent analysis that no one else from outside the university has seen, except when it was noticed yesterday as part of this meeting. So we'll move right into that. We have several tools to model various economic outcomes at the Haas Center, one of which is InPlan, and that's what we're using for today's scenario. I characterize these as models or assessments. I would not call it a study, but there's a lot of information that goes into this. The model we've selected, InPlan, uses data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics and numerous other things to examine what can be accomplished in a given geography like Escambia County. And I will note that this particular analysis focuses on our county's geography only, not the metro area. So we're modeling 100 jobs in retail and restaurants, so we've split them evenly, 50 jobs in retail, 50 jobs in restaurants, and 100 jobs in aviation parts manufacturing. So the reason I selected that particular type of manufacturer is it's in our target industries. It's among those target industries in the state of Florida, and particularly here in Escambia County, since we have already accomplished things in this particular area. We are the cradle of naval aviation, and we are also very close to another commercial manufacturer known as Airbus. So the possibility for our community to recognize new jobs in aviation manufacturing is a great possibility, and so that's why it was selected. And you can see here that we are only looking at jobs. We're not looking at construction or capital expenditure investments. We are only focusing on those jobs over time. And this particular slide shows us the difference in personal income gains. And what is personal income? Those wages that we earn, proprietors' income for operating a business related to these industries. And the great news is that each of these industries grow jobs in our community, some more than others, right? Some pay higher wages, but they also require more skilled labor, also more precise machinery, automation, things like that. So it makes it a higher value for any given community. Diving into some of the details, we have the economic output there in the lower right-hand corner. You'll see that economic output for a 12-month period for these jobs in restaurants and retail establishments in Escambia County comes to about 3.5 million, and this includes the direct jobs that we've imagined at 100, the indirect and the induced jobs. So indirect jobs are just the business-to-business transactions among suppliers and primes on a given project, right? Those induced jobs are things that I describe as support jobs. So when an architect helps to build a facility for a restaurant, and that architect then goes and purchases a brand new skateboard for her son that's manufactured right here in Escambia County, that's an example of an induced expenditure within our economy. Here's the contrast to that for aviation parts manufacturing. So indeed, we have a much higher output for that, higher jobs number as well, and the difference between the two is 48.4 million. Now, you know, while I'm focusing on these 3 industries, actually, I will say that a job in either of these industries is an important job. I started off in retail myself, and it's a good first job, right? Teaches one how to work with the public, deal with cash, and same is true, I imagine, for restaurant workers too. So both valuable opportunities for our young people, but we want to be able to grow the incomes for our residents, and so that's why we examine different industries to see which ones deserve more resource allocations. The other good news component to this is that when we grow manufacturing, we also grow other parts of our economy. So you can see here that these investments that manufacturers might embark upon in our community also provides us with other benefits, right? So we see here additional housing is required. Hospitals will also expand as a result of this type of investment. Monetary authorities and depository credit intermediation, those are bankers and credit unions. You see here that growth in wholesale is also important, as well as others that are on the screen here. We are contrasting this with retail jobs. Again, you see growth in the economy in various sectors, so that too is a very good thing. I'm going to end back on this slide because I think it's a nice comparison here. Again, we're trying to grow wealth in our community, and this piece of property that you're looking at today in depth is large enough to house numerous types of businesses, retail, restaurants, and light manufacturing. So I'll pause here and take your questions, or I'll have a seat.
So have you looked at the average wage of any of these jobs when you did your analysis?
Yes, sir, I have. So I'm going to speak in terms of full-time equivalents, right? Retail and restaurant jobs are not always full-time positions. But if we were to make those a full-time equivalent, our area boasts about $44,000 for a full-time role in the restaurant and retail occupations. Comparing that with aviation parts manufacturing, that's up there. That's looking at about $90,000 for an average wage. But the range is pretty big, you know, 52, 54,000, all the way up to the six-figure jobs. The range goes up to 200, even in our $200,000, even in our community of Escambia County. So it is a high-paying field, high-skill, high-wage occupation, but that's the difference between the two comparisons there. Good question.
Thank you.
Ma'am, I don't know if you can answer this question or not, but obviously PEDC would like to split the property. We've heard that. I'm sure all the commissioners have heard that. What do you think that they could do that one of the bidders for this property couldn't do the same way?
You know, that's outside of my area of expertise. I'm going to let the
Okay, I thought I'd ask it because it's.
Sure.
I think that's the conflict with the bidders and PEDC, and I thought you may have the answer. I wasn't trying to stump you.
No, it's okay.
No, and Mr. Chairman, I do have. So, you know, I've yielded on this project to the commissioners, no matter who's sitting in the seat to my right and my left, because it represents your district. Only thing that I've been consistent on is that, you know, there was a promise of high-wage jobs, you know, light industrial jobs, you know, to the $60,000 plus. I mean, what targeted industry do we have to go at in this scenario to make sure that we're getting jobs that are 60 plus? I mean.
Well, Florida Department of Commerce has identified several targeted industries, and our economic development professionals in our community have as well. So you have Navy Federal. That's a great example of high-wage jobs, right? Different type of setting than a manufacturing setting. Those jobs don't come around all the time, as you may guess. But other manufacturing organizations are also great opportunities for high-skill, high-wage jobs. I think also of machining for the maritime industry, right? So we have a growing sector in our economy, specifically here in downtown Pensacola, where we're going to see high-tech yachts on display and our youngsters sailing those yachts at high speeds around the bay. So I think there's the opportunity for new businesses to take root here in Escambia County and build some of those high-speed components for those yachts. And I look forward to that. So that's another example of a targeted industry for our community.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Nicole. Is there any other questions or, oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I have one more question. I feel like manufacturing has a bad reputation, and people think high pollution, smokestacks, lots of noise, semi-trucks. It's my understanding that manufacturing has changed significantly in the last 10 years, and especially with AI. Can you describe the type of manufacturing that would be ideal for this piece of property?
Thank you for that. Yes, indeed. So I suspect that most residents, and I'm a Escambia County resident, we'd like to see manufacturing that is highly automated, requires high-skilled technicians operating that equipment. You know, and it is not the same as it was several decades ago where you saw dirty, dark, and dangerous situations. Not to say that doesn't exist in manufacturing at this point in time, but if I were selecting an industry, I would select one that has no emissions and no discharge, right? Because that's the best opportunity for our county. I mentioned that manufacturing is highly, highly automated. The Haas Center does have one lane of service related to advanced manufacturing, and that's additive manufacturing. We have a small laboratory down in the Museum of Commerce known as C3D, Science, Engineering, and Art. And in that facility, we lean forward in terms of not only additive and 3D printing, but also the design for additive manufacturing. And I would hope that one day there is a large number of manufacturers that utilize 3D printing for a variety of industries, right? So you have additive and subtractive manufacturing. Machining is a great, CNC machining is a great example of subtractive manufacturing, and they both have their place in advanced manufacturing, but I suspect you'll see more of that over time, and that is highly automated. So, great question.
Yeah, I do. I've worked in the aerospace industry. I know it pays really well, and I've had to travel to go to those jobs. What's our biggest obstacle to having those jobs here in Escambia?
That's a really fascinating question, and I think there are many responses to that. At this time, land is a scarce resource, right? And we don't have a lot of land set aside for industrial purposes. So I would label that as a challenge, right? We have the opportunity to perhaps utilize the land in front of us at outlying Field 8, but there are very few parcels available for that type of development. Our airport is expanding, and we have a great maintenance, repair, and overhaul organization at the airport. There's only so much land right there in the middle of the city of Pensacola to expand that industrial base around aviation. So I would say that's one of our core challenges is land for light industry.
What about workforce?
Oh, workforce is the largest challenge facing almost every industry in the United States. So skilled labor is at a premium, and recruiting and retaining that skilled labor for any industry sector is a common problem.
Oh, Hoffberger, you have a comment?
Thank you. You mentioned that the jobs created for manufacturing and then the ancillary jobs behind that and the housing needed and the restaurant needed. Looking at OLF8, could you give us a breakdown of what percentage ideally would be spent on the manufacturing versus the housing versus the retail, just in your ideal world?
So in the DPZ master plan, they've set aside 270 acres, as I recall, and that seemed to be a great compromise in that situation. So I see no reason to alter that in any way. This previous board has done a nice job in coming up with that number, and that creates a nice diverse economy there right at I-10 and in the Beulah region. So I really have no opinion of changing that. So.
Well, I want to thank you for your comments. I appreciate the brief. I think the board does, and it was very informational for me. Thank you, ma'am.
My pleasure. Appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman, just
Oh, I'm
one more question. I'm pleased, because we get to get you for free today, so thank you so much. We know how much you're worth, so thank you kindly. So if we're looking at a board trying to line up our economic development, workforce, job creation goals, how do we begin to align that with our educational training and our educational institutions that we have? How do we align that so we don't have to recruit people from outside the area to take these high-skill jobs that you just referred to? I mean, what do we plan?
How much time do we have allocated for this? So I mentioned I'm with the University of West Florida, and several of my colleagues would be better positioned to speak to this. However, I think investing in education is the number one thing we can do. And, no surprise that I would say that, right?
Right.
But, bringing industry into that education partnership is important, as Commissioner Stroberger mentioned. Gaining skilled labor for any industry is a challenge, and is a particular challenge for the aviation sector, right? That's a highly regulated field. So to the extent you can promote opportunities for our youth to participate in certificate programs that will align them with high skill, high wage opportunities in the future, I applaud every effort to do that, whether it's going into a career academy and into one of our fantastic technical schools, or our Pensacola State College, or the University of West Florida. I think all of those opportunities are wise ones, and to the extent that Escambia County can encourage and invest in that, that's something that all of our residents will benefit from in the future. Does that answer your question?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you
Okay.
so much.
Thank you.
Thank you again. I appreciate your comments this morning. All right, if Drew, you could come up and talk just shortly about the DBZ, and then we'll move into the briefs.
Yes, sir. Good morning. Andrew Holmer, Development Services Department. I'm going to give you just a very brief overview of the master plan and the steps moving forward for development. So across the whole 540-acre piece, the majority of the land is cleared uplands. The southwest corner has some wetlands, and the plan itself acknowledges that. It created zoning districts that are specific to OLF 8. These are separate and distinct from any of the other zoning districts we have within the county. And the basic idea being you would have commercial type uses, commercial retail towards 9 Mile. Then working north, you get into some mixed use districts, which would allow for residential as well as a mixture of offices, things like that. Going to the northern portion, that's where we come in with the manufacturing, light industrial jobs creation type area. And that split is, as was just mentioned, roughly half and half between those mixtures. Now, going forward with development and whichever path you choose, those zoning districts are much more regulated than our general ones, because they contain a lot of design guidelines. In fact, there's a separate design code associated just with this master plan. As you mentioned earlier about smokestacks, right? This design code brings in elements of a form-based sort of zoning. Smokestack manufacturing doesn't necessarily have to look like smokestack manufacturing. That's why these very intense design standards are in there. It also provides buffering and other ways to try to accommodate the existing uses in the area. Right now, this is an empty field. There are houses off to the west. You've got some north and south. So moving forward, the plan gives a list of requirements for any submittal for projects within there, over and above our regular development review. So as each project comes in, we're going to match it up against the plan. It does give some leeway as far as making these design criteria fit the uses coming in. Once again, that's very regulated. This board has reserved the right that you can make adjustments to that as so needed. And the plan it's kind of ambitious on a timeline. We're just going to have to see how the market works out for any changes that would have to come. But any projects, we would just schedule them and get them through the process, and let's get going.
Is there any questions from the board? I have a couple questions, but.
So it's the property zoned exactly the way DPZ dictates it needs to be?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. I don't want to get too deep in the weeds, but there's a way it transitions over time, but as of right now, yes.
Drew, I know there's been some discussion, and this is some of the conflict with the citizens out of Beulah, is some of the modification to the planning and zoning that they think needs to be done. How extensive do you think that would need to be done? And what kind of changes that we wouldn't upset the spirit of the DPZ plan?
It's a tough question without an actual plan in front of me. But, keep in mind, if there's a regulation put in there, it's there for a reason. We need to know that reason before we can say, hey, let's just toss that out or open this up. We really need to know why it's there in the first place. But that right is reserved for this board.
Yeah, and I'll ask some of the people that put a bid in what they would think they'd need to do, so we'll have that on record. I don't have any, Commissioner May?
So when you look at the DPZ plan, do you see challenges that would impair, prohibit, slow down the economic growth of the developers? Or what the current plan as it's laid out? And I would assume you believe it's a good plan. Do you see that there are challenges that would not allow for us to get the best ROI right now in terms of dollars? That the developers would look, if we say we're putting out an RFQ and RFP for a proposal, and we want you to follow this design that the citizens have given their input, and we want to live by that, by that roadmap. Are there challenges for the developer, in your opinion, that will cause them to maybe say, well, we're not going to give you 40 million, we're going to give you 30 million because of these zoning challenges or these land use challenges?
The plan is what it was designed for, okay? It would provide opportunities for someone to move forward in that direction. The whole idea of live, work, play, because it's got so many mixed-use elements, it allows for a wide range of those opportunities. As far as any kind of design specifics for each plan, I'd need to have it in front of me, because it does regulate the intensity of the uses allowed in each district. So it's a little more intense than that.
Well, and I know we'll meet tonight. I mean, in terms of you got to get it in front of you and to be able to take a look at it. But, I think there are many of us that are ready to raise the arm and make a decision. But I have to make a decision based on the best economic opportunity for all the citizens of Escambia County in maximizing the highest potential of dollars that can be brought in with the least amount of restriction that gives us smart and good growth. And so I just want to make sure that plan addresses that, because, that certainly is going to, at the end of the day, the bottom line number is going to be a determining factor for me to make a yes vote tonight. But I want to make sure that there are no restrictions that a developer can say, if we didn't have A, B, and C, we would have given D and F. I mean, and so that's my question to our zoning people, because we all know that land usage zoning is going to be the number one issue when that land gets ready to get developed, other than stormwater.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And Commissioner, and as if with any proposal, with my tenure in doing this a long time, most developers going to always state that there are restrictions that could hinder the development of any project. Yet with the understanding is that with those regulations, they could make the value even higher, because people do want to come to those type of master plans community. So they're gonna always be a take that, yes, this gonna, but if they really want to develop it and want to partner with the community, the value is going to be there, so they can bring in all the jobs that's requested by this board, and you can get that pristine development. And when we look at it, if it's challenging, we can work with them to try to get what they do, and yet be in harmony with the neighborhood, or with the wishes of the board. So saying that they're gonna always say that, but if they really want to be here and be good partners, many of them, they're gonna try their best to try to adhere to those standards.
Understand?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Horace. I mean, Mr. Chairman, just to that point, Horace, I mean, yeah, at the end of the day, for all the citizens in all 5 districts, at the end of the day, I mean, we can go through and we have to make sure the zoning is amicable to the developers, because we want to make sure that we get the most dollars that we can get with the greatest return for the citizens.
And we want, and we as the zoning staff development service, we want that to be for this board, because we want to adhere to your standards and what your desires are for the betterment of the community in any development project.
So, in Horace, do we have any examples of light manufacturing in Escambia County where people have pulled permits and they're currently operating? Without smokestacks, and that's, you
Yeah,
know.
I mean, I can speak from firsthand experience. In the Central Commerce Park, there's a business out there that does a tremendous amount of defense contracting, but they do. Danita's in the audience. Danita, come up for just a second. What exactly I mean, I've toured the building. They've got these big 3D printers and stuff. What exactly does Custom Control build?
They build control systems, and
Okay.
it's a wide variety of control systems. So imagine, and I'll just say an example, Ascend Performance Materials or International Paper, and the internal computerized control system that runs their operation, that would be one example. They also build natural gas stations that they've shipped to California, and these are big housing units that look like containers, but are completely controlled for the processes of manufacturing.
All right, thank you, Danita. And just as an example, if you drive by the business that's in the Central Commerce Park off Highway 29, I mean, you would think that they were processing mortgages in there. I mean,
Yes.
you wouldn't have any indication of the high-tech manufacturing that's going on within the structure. It's, you know, I've toured it a couple of times. I can't remember exactly what they did, but it's very fancy. You know, it's very high-tech.
And I don't have, and Commissioner Berry, as I've yielded to you and Commissioner McGosh, and now you and Commissioner Strohberger, I don't have those in my district, but I certainly think that, you know, that type of smart growth is important for the citizens, to make sure that we have manufacturing that's environmentally sensitive and environmentally healthy to all the citizens.
And Commissioner, yes, and Commissioner Barris, absolutely. We have other projects where you don't have to have that quote-unquote the old, where you can have distribution, where everything can be manufacturing well pristine and be a helpmate for the community, and still bring in that high-dollar paying jobs with those standards, without smokestacks, pollution that was way, like we have in the county currently.
Danita, do you want to make a comment?
I would like to just point out a couple more examples where we have clean manufacturing taking place in our community. One of those is, for example, since Florida West's inception, 2014, we have generated 63 projects. More than half of those projects are with manufacturers that are already here. For example, in the Ellison Industrial Park, we have Pegasus Laboratories, which is a pet pharmaceutical company that's been in operation for 30 years. We helped them expand into a new 173,000 square foot facility. They're going to generate an additional 63 jobs with average wages of about $61,000 a year, because a lot of what they're doing involves scientific research and development on the pharmaceutical side of things. And so that's just another example of, you know, companies that are here that have a great deal of employment, as well as GE Manufacturing, one of our largest manufacturers in the community, producing wind nacelles that are shipped from Pensacola all around the Midwest up to Canada area as well. So those are generally high-paying jobs as well, and everything takes place on the interior. There is a lot of back and forth related to their work with the port, importing product in, and then incorporating that and exporting it as well.
Danita, and I was going to wait till after the presenters present this, and I was going to ask either you or Rick Breyer this question. But since you're here talking, there's been a lot of effort, a lot of time spent on this project, and quite frankly, in my opinion, way too long. So the forecast of creating these light manufacturing, clean industry jobs, how do we look? I mean, there's vacant land, probably not as valuable as the piece of property that's in front of us, but we've often had attempts, and we've not quite been able to get it across the finish line in other projects. But timetable, looking at it, I mean, how do you feel about it? I mean, you're in the business of forecasting and predicting jobs and creating these jobs for citizens. I mean, you know, everybody wants to know, what did you do for them yesterday? Citizens have had this high hope for this project for many years, and to the point where many believe that it's not going to happen. I mean, so how soon can we get those jobs? Are the prospects out there now and just waiting on us to make a decision, or can you talk about that just a little?
Yes, absolutely. I have presented OLF8 to multiple potential prospects from aviation to manufacturing, et cetera. And the hampering aspect of OLF8 is the lack of the infrastructure that's there. I worked with county staff and FPL on their Powering Florida program, which really takes a look at site readiness. And so we have worked together with county staff to take a look at where the utilities are currently existing and what are those improvements that are needed to be made. So as soon as we can work together to, get infrastructure in place, the businesses will come. The hampering aspect is the timing related to, whether it meets the business model of when they need their production to be taking place. And so if we can get ahead of getting the infrastructure in, then projects are going to naturally come. It's an exciting opportunity for this community countywide to have.
So we were shovel-ready today. You believe that you could fill up the 270 acres quickly?
Absolutely. We could make a good dent in that to begin with, I believe. There's a lot of interest out there in, manufacturing arena, and, working with a couple of projects for Central Commerce Park as well, where we actually have infrastructure that needs to be just extended.
So you being our economic development arm, you being our job creation arm, you need for us to assist you in getting this site shovel-ready.
Absolutely. Economic development doesn't happen in a silo. It takes a village. It takes all of us working together, getting on the same page to help to move projects forward.
And Danita, if you were looking at Santa Rosa, how many sites do you think they have shovel-ready today?
At least 3 industrial areas right off of the interstate that's ready to go.
And that's who we're competing against?
That and Alabama. There's a mega site in Alabama, and they're looking at some additional investment as well. So we continually need to look at available or potential available properties, not only for today, tomorrow, but into our future as well. So we look forward to working with you all in, helping to identify potential sites. One of the areas that we do lack in is rail-served sites, but we've got Midtown Commerce Park and other areas in the north part of the county that we could look at.
I'll be much more
We call it
opinionated about
product.
that.
Yes, we call it product, our inventory of available, ready-to-go properties.
Thank you, Danita.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Strober, do you have a question?
Yeah, Danita, you could answer this maybe too, I don't know. Drew or Horace, can someone define what the spirit of the plan means? Because that kind of goofy language worries me, and I think it worries residents out there what that means. Because it sounds like a margin for error that's unacceptable.
So, keeping in mind that the overall design idea behind the plan was for this town center type place with jobs included, jobs and housing included, to kind of fill a need in that area because it's going to provide goods and services for the greater Beulah area, something that's really lacking at this point. And the idea was to make this an attractive, friendly place for folks to come and do that live, work, play. It's got an area set aside as civic is one of the zoning categories it's set aside. Yes, it includes the wetland area and would include, stormwater in a larger sense, but it also would provide for walking trails, different amenities that are out there. Yes, Navy Federal has their rec center right next door, but this would also include for more smaller scale services like that. And that's kind of where in my head it is that the spirit of it is the plan is almost aspirational in having a nice place to attract people to and provide for those folks that are already out there.
So it sounds like you're telling me that we would err, at least looking at the spirit, we would err toward beautiful. We would err toward
There's nothing wrong
amenities.
with there's nothing wrong with things looking good for the
Yeah.
public.
Yeah.
We can have better products.
And if I may, and there are some, and there are some areas and what the intent is not directly specific. So when it says the inspirited intent, in those categories that is allowed, the intent of the idea is there to have the beautification of it. But it may not fit within that specific category in those certain zoning districts that has that language, that give us that spirit or intent.
Yeah, but that intent is not good enough for me either. That's not good enough.
So Allison, you had mentioned that we can lock in the DPZ as almost like deed restrictions on the property, and maybe that would help the situation. Can you elaborate on that?
The board really does have a blank canvas at this point, and there are tools that you have in your toolbox. One of the things we discussed, it's been months and months ago, but when we had a previous interested party, we did talk about recording the master plan as a restrictive covenant on the deeds with that property. There are potentially some other tools that you might have to help ensure the history or in the future of what goes there. So it just depends on what the board is after. There may be ways of, obligating a buyer into maybe a development agreement or some other kind of contractual arrangement, or, you do control the land use and the zoning and the regulations for that property as the governing agency. So there are ways to control it, not 100%, but there are certainly ways to steer it.
All right. I haven't, just since we're on our time here a little bit, 3 of the different people on PDC asked me about appraisals and why we haven't had an appraisal. Steve, I wanted them to know that I went back to our staff. Steve, do you mind comment on that? Because it keeps coming up, like, why aren't we doing a current appraisal? I know you and I have had a conversation about it. I got it last night as well. And I think I'd like you to explain what you told me so it's on the record.
There's no requirement that you have an appraisal. You can certainly get one. But typically that would be something that the prospective buyer would want to get for themselves. But if the board chooses, they can certainly get an appraisal if that's the will of the board.
Yeah, I guess for me, it just seemed odd that we didn't have one, but I defer to the experts on this from your staff. So it's been asked, like I said, I just wanted to have the comment on the record. If there's no other questions, we can move on to the briefs. Thanks, Steve. All right, so this is alphabetical. It has nothing to do by priority other than alphabetically. So the first presentation we can do now is Beulah Ranch. If Ryan, oh, there you are. Thank you. Come on up, and we're looking forward to hear what you have to say.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Commissioners, for your time, and thank you, people of Escambia County and Beulah, for your passion for this project and showing up and making your voices heard. So our lovely assistant here is going to put up a slide for me. going to give her a second because I believe this is important. It is directly tied to the conversation we just had, and it's the mission that got me excited about this and what I want everybody to focus on and coordinate together. That's it. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that. So I just want to simply look at the DPZ design. So I labeled and named my group and this design Beulah Ranch because I've been a long-standing member of this community, 5th generation. And I love what the history of Beulah has been, which is an equestrian metropolis. And when I was growing up, going to Tate High School, I really enjoyed eating at Beulah Land Barbecue, where one of my friends, her dad, Doug Allen, owned that restaurant. And so Beulah has developed, Pensacola has developed, and I'll get into that a little bit. But I love that statue of a horse right there in the center. And although I may not build that exact one, that is something very similar to what I want to build and be the theme as you drive in to this beautiful community that I know we can do together. So I have comments prepared, and then I'll talk a little bit if I have time. The one thing that we really need to focus on is leadership. That's one thing that this process is desperately needing is leadership, clear and simple direction. This is a complex process for sure, and I am fully capable and my team is fully capable of working through the complexities of this process. But what we need to focus on is clear direction and simple facts. And a quick story about my character. So I'm wearing my running shoes today because I'm nursing a leg injury from a Thanksgiving football Super Bowl that we have every year at my family. And my opponent was a commander. He is out at the Navy base in New Orleans. He is 6'5", 250 pounds. And when I was in 8th grade, he broke my collarbone playing Thanksgiving football. And this year, he sprained my leg trying to score a touchdown against him. But I'm all in. Whether it's playing Thanksgiving football or it's something as important as this project, I am all in, 1,000%. And it was this design that got me excited. And when I moved my family back here to the Pensacola area, it was a family decision for me to raise my kids in the environment that I was raised in that gave me the family values and the faith values of this beautiful community. So that's why I moved back. But man, since being here and seeing this design, I jumped on the phone with my friends down in Tampa that I've built long-standing relationships with. These are folks that have built skyscrapers in Miami. They own stadiums, and I'm not going to name them because you would know who they are, and they told me not to do that. And one individual is the owner of a Fortune 100 private company, and he's interested in this deal. And with those relationships, I know that I can deliver this product, at least the contract, get it closed in 8 months in order to fulfill this vision. So some quick stats about what has happened to our area since Navy Federal came to town. So we already had our beautiful beaches. We had world-class flight in the Navy Blue Angels in our NAS Pensacola. But bringing a world-class, the largest credit union in the world, and bringing the economic impact that had, our representatives from UWF left, but they can back me up in this. It's been about $4 billion in economic impact. So for a town of Pensacola, that and the metro area, when I say Pensacola, I mean Escambia County, Santa Rosa County. That is a massive impact. So what that has produced, when you go online and read the statistics from the Federal Reserve of St. Louis, we have grown at a rate of 1.2% every year for the past 10 years, which is amazing. And it shows in our infrastructure at how quickly that has happened, because it has stretched our infrastructure. So it's definitely time to use something like this and have a well-planned, well-executed design that we focus on all aspects, and one of those is infrastructure. So we have grown at a rate at 1.2%. So for 500,000 people between the two counties, that's 5,000 people a year that we've grown at. Our units of housing units has lagged behind that at about 4,000 units. So that means that we've been behind for the past 10 years about 500 units each year to support the growth that has happened to Pensacola. Why has that happened? It's because of Navy Federal, but also because of other groups like the IHSMC, like our UWF and our cybersecurity. Now we're the world-class sailing home, which is amazing, and we've heard that talked about. And then Palafox has been completely redone to be this really fun place where you can come and eat and have a wide culture and parks. So when I've lived in Tampa and worked with groups like the groups I want to get involved on this project, I've been a part of these developments and lived in these developments where we meet the design. We meet this design right here, where you can live, work, play, have a golf cart community where you can drive down to your restaurant in your golf cart and experience an environment like this, and it's very special. And that's why I want to focus on this, is because that's my target. That's what I'm going to go after. And I also have the local relationship. So Cameron Cawley is here with me. He's with NAI. He's who is my pick to help me with the management of the commercial leases and then also the commercial sales. He's done a stand-up job, and he has national relationships as well. And we have people that are asking for when we're going to be done. You talk about it being shovel-ready. I am ready to get it shovel-ready within 8 months. Now, the planning can be done in that time. The closing can be done in that time, but it may take a little more time than that to actually get all the engineering done, get all the approvals done so that the roads get built. So I don't see my time, but I just want to speak to my relationships. So some of my distant cousins are in the room, and I won't say what their names are. I'll talk to you after the meeting, that live next door to the community. And then my kids and my cousins walk down Frank Reeder Road. So I said this on the news yesterday morning. When you talk about putting 18-wheelers on Frank Reeder Road, that's a big deal. That is a big safety concern. And there's also a potential issue at the bottleneck. So at the intersection of Beulah and Frank Reeder, there's that subdivision right there, and there's a little retention drain that's right next to it. That's the only piece of dirt that we have to expand that road, unless you go into the people across the street and take some of their land by eminent domain to widen it enough to get the trucks down that road. So it's not in the contract, but I'm willing to negotiate it because I have family that is in that area, and I want to protect them by not saying where they live. That's why I'm willing to pay up to $5 million to have that service road specifically just for trucks, because I have had conversations with Florida West and Danita and other principals of PEDC, and so I understand the momentum behind the jobs that they're bringing, and I believe those jobs are extremely important. But I also understand the needs of the people in that area and to protect those people, and some of those people are my family members. So I do believe that I can help quarterback this and marry the goal to get jobs, but then also the goal to make sure that this is a responsible development. So if there's any other questions or with that, I'll go ahead and yield my time. But I'm sorry. I'm the only one of the 3 developers that has signed this contract, and that's because I'm ready. If you are ready, I'm ready to get this started, to get the money delivered, to get the jobs delivered, to get my friends to not just talk about doing this, but to bring them here. And I am excited to use this as something to do other developments that I've already kind of just laid out there for them. And I'm not going to mention those developments right now, but they're downtown Pensacola, and it would be very exciting to get this done. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Ryan. Let's open it up. Commissioner May, you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And you feel comfortable with the DB design?
I do. I love it, and that's why I put it up here. So to the point that we just had the conversation about the design, yes, it's a beautiful design. It may need to be enhanced when we get the real companies, we get the real housing, we get the real shops and restaurants. It will need to fit the buildings that are going there. So what I mean by that is that I'm going to stick to the zoning because I believe in it and I believe it's appropriate. But the exact details of the engineering and the architecture need to be added. Maybe that's the safe way to say that to the plan.
When you feel comfortable that in 8 months you'd have all the design and engineering completed?
Yes, sir, absolutely. It could be done sooner than that.
When would you think that you'd be shovel-ready?
After the contract is executed, after the 8 months.
After the 8 months?
After the 8 months. Would I want to do it sooner? Yes. That's not necessarily a realistic thing for me to say in this time right now.
And what was your bottom line offer in your contract?
So it's $30 million, and
is that negotiable? Or is that your hard, is that your hard number?
So there is such a passion and an energy from my group and my friends to get this done, and from my local friends to get this done, and that's why Cameron's in this room today. So there's a desire to get it done now. That's why I signed the contract now, so that we could move forward under the current terms of the contract. And that's why my attorney, Tripp Maygarden, here at Moorhead Law, advised me to not put the terminology of the road in the contract for today. But sorry, to answer your question, yes, I think there's some room, but
So the number's not hard. It's not hard from your perspective.
So
because the number seems just a little low, candidly.
yeah, sorry, I'm looking at a 15-minute clock behind you, or 15 seconds. That's
I'll
why
yield you time
Thank
if you want to answer it.
So here's something that's super important about this deal and why this has been back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. In the design, there's 180 acres for public use and for park. That's great. It's beautiful. And I do believe that I can hit the investment numbers that I need to hit for my group based on the current design. However, if we go back and take out 270 acres of that total in the design code, the developable acres are 424 acres. So if you take out 270 of that, that then leaves me with 270. You take out 180 for civic and public, that leaves me with 90 acres, 60 of which are residential, for me to try and hit my investment goals. I'm sorry, that's not going to happen.
Understood. So the 30 million includes the 270? It does not include the 270?
The 30 million includes all of it, yes, sir.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other comments from the board? Okay, thanks, Mr. Bell. I appreciate that.
Thank you, everyone.
We're going to start next with Beulah Town Center. Fred, I don't know who's briefing from your group, but please come up.
Good morning. I'm Fred Himmer. As most of you know, I'm principal with Beulah Town Center, and I've been up here a number of times, and I'm finally very thankful we're getting to this position where I think we're going to finally be able to have you all have the information to make a decision. I want to introduce our partners and principals. Chad Horn, I think most of you have met. He's been my partner up here for the 14 years we've been doing business, and we've been very close friends for almost 40 years. Brian Spencer, obviously you know, local architect, and Brian, Chad and I have been good friends for the last 10 years, and Brian is also a partner with us on other projects in St. Pete, as well as does architectural service for us in St. Petersburg. Will Dunaway is our attorney, as you know, and where's Rob? Rob Aarons and Ben are with Metro Development. Because of our time limitation here, we think it's most important for us to give all of our time to Rob with Metro so that he can show and explain what Metro does. Obviously, at the end of that, all of us are available to answer any questions, and the rest of us may speak tonight as individuals too. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred.
Well, Ben's hooking me up here. Let me just give you a brief thank you for having us here this morning. I'll reintroduce myself to some of you. Thank you all for letting us do this presentation. Metro Development Group is headquartered in Tampa, Florida, and we work all over the state of Florida. This is what we do for a living. We do master plan mixed-use communities, and I'm going to walk you through this just a little bit so you can understand what we do. Here's the biggest point here. We've been in business since 2002. I've been a principal at this company since then, so I've been through all this ups and downs in a real estate market. We have tremendous experience. As you can see, we have over 50 employees just in our development company. We own 3,500 multifamily units. We have 1,200 acres of commercial. We currently have 28 active projects throughout the state of Florida, with over 60,000 lots included with all of that mixed use. Some of the people we do business with, I know most of you know those names. You'll see some of them are commercial developers, some are hotel, some are even school builders, and we'll get into that in a little bit. Throughout our history, we've won a number of awards for what we've done in the community. These awards don't sit in our offices, they sit in the county offices. We are very, I guess, passionate about partnering with the county or the municipality. This won't work unless we're all happy. We went into Pasco County, which is down near Tampa. We asked that county, what do you want? How do you want to see this developed? We had 4,000 acres inside this county. We got with all of our neighbors. We got together and formed 8,000 acres of a mixed-use community, way larger than what we're talking about here today. But all the same planning has to go into this. It has to have a road network. The industrial or manufacturing has to be inside the community, but where you position it is going to be very important. The previous speaker had concerns about that up at the north end. So do I. That road is substandard. I don't know if that's where that all goes. To do this, we have to have partners involved with every single part of this community. So the county's a partner, but if you want to build commercial, we need a commercial partner. We need one best in class. That's who's going to deliver this and do the right job. You have a phenomenal piece of property here. I would suggest we don't blow it. We do this kind of commercial. We think it's different. We think it's upscale. We think it's what you need here in this county. We partner with all sorts of people that do all sorts of things. They are financial partners and they're builder partners. Our company does not build multifamily, but we have partners who build multifamily. We partner with them, best in class, and we deliver phenomenal communities. This is some of the stuff that we do with our partners. Not necessarily upscale. I think we need to cover the whole gambit of whatever the community is, but I think you need to have this something you can be proud of. So successful in what we called Connected City 1.0 that we owned 6,000 acres on the other side of the county. We did Connected City 2.0. The big difference with that, we convinced the Moffitt Cancer Center to do their World Center for Cancer Research. 24 million square feet, 15,000 jobs just with Moffitt. We partnered with them to get them in our community, and we worked with the county to make sure they had a seamless transition into that county. This is what we've done in Pasco County since we started with that collaboration with everyone involved. So here's my pitch. This shouldn't be contentious. This should be a work in progress. Do I agree with the zoning plan? I don't even know. The worst thing we can do is build a building and no tenant. I hope Danita's right. I hope there's a line out our door when we start this, and we're going to together make this a community we can be proud of. So I don't know if everything's right in your zoning conditions, but together we're going to figure out if it is. But this isn't me coming in and trying to choke you with something, and it can't be the other way around. So it has to be something we've all agreed to, and that's what we do best with every single community we build. We partner with the municipality to make sure they got what they wanted. I'm going to beat my 10 minutes. So there you go. That's me. That's Metro Development Group. And here to answer any questions you guys might have.
Does the board have any questions for Rob?
Just one. So are you satisfied with the DPZ plan? I mean, you think you can work within the confines of that, or you would stray from that?
No, I'm going to say we're going to stray. But I don't know enough about it that I can tell you how. But I already know, I don't think the industrial's up at the north end of the project. I think traffic's going to be one of your bigger concerns in a project like this. And so I think you need to have seamless integration between all of the uses in here. We named it Connected City because it connects a whole bunch of different ways. We own a high-speed internet company. We have the fastest internet speeds in the country. 2 gig over 2 gig. It's symmetric. Important in this thing. Part of the connection. We do golf cart paths everywhere in our communities. They're zoned to be on a street. But what we've also done is we've connected neighborhoods and sections with shortcuts. So imagine this. Your son or daughter can get to school on their golf cart. You can go to the grocer on your golf cart. So that's important. It creates a social fabric in a community. I think it's going to be important that you have a town center with common space so everyone can go down there and enjoy life in this community. I think it needs to cover everything. Live, work, and play, although maybe overused, very important in a community like this. You can't have vacant parcels for 10 or 20 years. For this to be successful, you need to start it off with a bang, and you need to get going and create that energy that a community like this is going to need. And so I think when you're planning this, I think we're going to come together and go, I don't know if this makes any sense, you know? And maybe it does and maybe it doesn't, but I will commit to you, it will be a collaborative effort. I am not here to try and choke anybody with anything. You like that plan? I'm going to come in and show you why maybe that plan doesn't work, and maybe most of the plan does. Don't know yet.
And again, what was the bottom line number for the contract, your offer?
42 and a half.
42 and a half. Is that negotiable or is that hard?
Everything's negotiable.
Okay, thank you.
All right. I don't see any other mics on, so I obviously thank you for the presentation. I know you guys have been involved with this for a long time. I look forward to the discussion after the last one, but thank you for coming and presenting the brief. Appreciate it. If we could have, I don't know if it's going to be Chad or Mr. Wilson or Ashton from Tri-W come up and present their presentation.
Apologies here. Alex, will you help me? Look, help me look for this. I don't know. Yes, it's in this guy. It's just a PDF.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, thanks so much for having us. My name is Chad Henderson. I'm representing the Catalyst and Wilson team that has presented an offer on OLA FAPE. I'm going to start off by saying that, you know, we really and truly believe that this is way more than a real estate transaction. This is. We understand the gravity of the decision that you guys are thinking about and being prepared to make. We also understand that this has been, you know, a decade or more worth of work, and that we're here standing on the shoulders of giants like folks like Jim Cronley that has done fantastic work in order for this to even be a possibility. But we also know that this is not just a real estate transaction. This is a partnership selection. This is who is going to be your partner with this gem of a resource and a gem of an asset to Northwest Florida. We're committed to working within the DPZ plan. I know the word spirit has been thrown around, but we certainly want to work within the confines of DPZ. We would reach out to them and work with them within the spirit if there was needing to be tweaks, certainly working alongside with you in those milestones as well. You know, but we believe this is about alignment. We believe this is about partnership, but ultimately what's it really about is outcomes. Is the outcomes. We believe there needs to be one master developer to hold accountable. You know, we in our shop, we call it one throat to choke. You know, so one entity, an organization, a group of partners to look at and hold accountable for their work. And there is so many different details, meticulous details when you're talking about a property of this size and a lot of moving parts to make sure that you have a fantastic working relation with one group. To work. So ultimately, we are very much in favor of holding the property together and having one developer. Real quickly, I'm going to walk through just as the plan sits. I really think there's three key stakeholders here. There are those that are very much about, you know, what the original intent of this project was, which is job creation. So we're going to call that the E district. So the E district stakeholders. Certainly the mixed-use district stakeholders that are folks in the community that are really in favor of having a beating heart of Beulah. And finally, just the stewardship of this group here, of just what it means to try and move this forward. We also want to tell you about our team and our firm's experience, as well as a few case studies that we're going to walk through. From an E-District perspective, you know, Danita said this, but it is 100% going to take a united front to bring the jobs that we all want to bring. It's going to take a united front. Certainly, the developer has a huge role in this, but any developer would be remiss not to use, you know, the local and regional tools in the toolbox to make sure that we are best oriented to recruit the best uses, the best employers onto the site. So we've had a couple workshops with PEDC leadership and Florida West leadership. Just this week, we have submitted an MOU, a memorandum of understanding of our intention to partner with those groups, you know, from an E-District perspective, and a commitment to creating jobs and to creating the jobs that we all want. We have great case studies and examples of how we have done that in the past, and looking forward to sharing with that in a bit. We also, you know, just want to make sure that we're coming about this as a unified front of being a leader out front and focusing on quality and just creating this sense of belief that we can do this together, that we believe that we can recruit the high-quality employers that we want. Now, certainly just having a shovel-ready site, it's great. It's a great place to start, but having a curated master plan that works together, that creates a sense of place and a sense of community, certainly aids in how we can bring and how we can recruit those employers. So this is absolutely connected, and that's why it's important to have one master developer. Other stakeholders is the mixed-use district. We have met with several key stakeholders of the Beulah community, and we have both from large employers like Navy Federal, Theresa Blackwell, and others to talk about what a beating heart means to them. And certainly we think that with our experience, we can create that within the confines of, in the spirit of the DPZ plan. You know, a place that is curated, not a place that just hangs shingles to collect any type of rent, but to create, you know, experiences where people can gather, where they can have human capital exchange, where they can enjoy family, where they can talk about starting the next business or that game on last Friday night, but places to gather. And certainly civic anchors help to do that. My background has been more on the healthcare and wellness and health span side. We believe that healthcare is certainly a civic anchor to a community. And those are what we're talking about, creating civic anchors to where we can build on. But a purposeful mix of uses of national, regional, and local operators that create that sense of place. And I mentioned an 18-hour environment. And why I say that is that I don't want to have just an office park where people show up at 8 a.m. and they leave at 5 p.m. and it's just dark on the weekends. But I'm certainly not trying to create just a shopping in a retail district either, or an entertainment district of nothing but food and beverage that's activated at 5 p.m. and beyond. But it's a mix of those uses that come together, that curation that really creates a sense of place and community. And honestly, it's where you end up is, the whole is way greater than the sum of its parts, right? It's not just about a retail center. It's not just about a park. It's not just about an E-district, but it's how these things interact with one another. And that's why when we come as a partner and we work with DPZ and others to make sure that we have, while we're certainly grounded, our feet are grounded in the spirit of that plan, but we're coming back to you maybe if we needed some augmented changes based on interest we have, from an employer or user that would make sense and move the needle. From a stewardship perspective, which is this on you, I think choosing the right developer means everything, whether that's us or someone else. Because while the purchase price is certainly important, it is an immediate ROI on your investment, on your strategy of land swap, but ultimately it's just the beginning. That's where it starts. That's day one. But if you're not thinking about day two and beyond, I think we're really missing the boat. So, choosing the right developer means everything. Obviously, this is a fiduciary responsibility for this piece of property in this district, but also, we believe, for the greater Northwest Florida and the region, where, a rising tide floats all boats. But I would also say that, this is impossible without the access to a few things. It's the right access to private capital, the type of capital. I mean, we believe this is over a $500 million to $1 billion project over a certain, longer period of time. And access to capital is extremely important. And myself, and we'll tell you some more examples and some details in a bit, but access to some of the leading private equity platforms in real estate throughout the nation and the world, folks like CalPERS and Harrison Street and Heitman and Mitsubishi Pension and MetLife. But bringing this institutional capital and the network that comes with it is certainly important. We believe on having the right relationships nationally, regionally, and local. Nationally from a capital perspective, from a user perspective. Same thing from a regional perspective. But also from a local perspective and a statewide perspective to how to navigate, all of those important relationships that help us further leverage our tools in the toolbox to make sure that we're getting all that we can get to be successful. And certainly we want to make sure that we're made up of the right team of significant talent and meaningful experiences. This is not the project to embark on something new, but to align and partner with someone that has done this before, platforms that have done this before. We think that is extremely important. What I want to point out between me and my partners behind me is that there's really two platforms coming together. So certainly we'll highlight some key leadership and some key leadership experiences, but these are platform organizations that run the gamut of experience in mixed use, residential, E-district development, healthcare, retail, food and beverage, and so forth. So the power of the platform, and between the platforms is over 250 individuals. And these come from capital markets background, construction and development background, asset management background, financial reporting and accounting background, business development and innovation background. That's the platforms that are coming together. I was lucky enough to found Catalyst Healthcare Real Estate back in 2009. I originated this organization here in Pensacola, Florida. I'm very proud of the team that we have built. We have offices in Dallas, Texas, and in Central Florida as well, in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. and have the benefit of traveling throughout the country and see how other communities do it and how they think about it. But so certainly being grounded here in Pensacola, I grew up just one exit down the road, went to Pine Forest High School. So this is my backyard. This is a legacy opportunity for me and my family as well. I think that this is to be grounded in this local aspect, as well as having this national reach is certainly important to be successful. At Catalyst, we've placed over $600 million of equity in the last 5 years. What that means is if you leverage it up by 65% of debt, I mean, that's $1.5 billion in activity in commercial real estate in the last 5 years. JWA, Jim Wilson and Associate, Will Wilson, my partner, has immense experience in a myriad of different real estate sectors, including job creation, as well as retail and residential. Based in Montgomery, Alabama, they are certainly a powerhouse partner to have. I'm lucky that they would even think about partnering with someone like me to come down here and do a fantastic job. They've done over $2 billion in development, and they have 25 million square feet of experience working with institutional capital on retail. We'll go through some case studies as well. We are going to give you a copy of our presentation so you can dig deeper into some of the individuals and the leadership's experience. I do want to pour it out. Somebody that I'm certainly proud of, who moved to Pensacola 3 months ago, is Eric Fisher here. Eric is the Chief Development Officer of Catalyst. Eric comes to us from Washington, D.C., where he was the former Managing Director of Trammell Crow Company, which is one of the most high-profile, prolific developers in the country. He is also the co-chair and founder of ULI Life Sciences and Healthcare Committee. So Eric brings to us over 13.4 million square feet of development experience as well, valued at roughly $4.7 billion. A lot of those experiences we'll point out here in a second with some case studies. Moved to Pensacola with his wife. Certainly happy to have him, and he'd be a fantastic resource on this project. Certainly, having Ashton on our team and to be able to navigate his relationships at the local and state level, and even the federal level, to make sure that, again, that we are leveraging all the tools in the toolbox and working with PEDC, Florida West, and others to make sure that we are getting all of the best. I hate the word leverage, but the best, orientation to be successful. And so happy to have Ashton on our team as well. A couple of quick, I'm going to fire through these on these case studies. East Chase is in Montgomery. In 1999, this was a 330-acre hayfield. And today it is over $250 million investment that created 4,500 jobs, over 1.5 million square feet of real estate built, a mixed use community that does have a sense of place and a sense of walkability, over 30 restaurants in East Chase, offices, and a partnership with a large insurance organization in this development. Redstone Gateway and Redstone Arsenal in Huntsville, Alabama, is a really large, I think in a very fitting example, 468 acres, $550 million in investment that has created almost 8,700 jobs. A partnership with the United States Army and working in the defense contracting industry and bringing really high-wage jobs as an anchor to this development. And certainly, we believe there's some relationships to leverage on there. It's interesting here, if you look at the DPZ plan and the website DPZ, they point out Kentlands, Maryland DPZ as an example of scale. Actually, Eric ran point on some of that development in the AstraZeneca campus that was the E district of Kentlands. In addition, down the street, working with Johns Hopkins University for 1.5 million square feet and 60 acres, which is kind of a separate phase of Kentlands at the Bellward campus that is research, that has a biopharma, pharmaceutical manufacturing, and all of that he worked and ran point on that, and we're certainly looking forward to leveraging his experience experience and relationships from that experience. Locally, I have led efforts at downtown East Garden District that is, we just broke ground on our placemaking hotel, Hotel Tristan, but curating different spaces to create another 18-hour node or district in downtown, as well as Ransley Station, which is one exit over that's 60-acre development, including residential, retail, and other uses. And just to wrap up, you know, I think why you should consider Catalyst and the Wilson team is really that there's three major things that I think you should consider in choosing a developer. And I don't think you can have two of these three things. You have to have all three of them. Do they get it? Do they get the type of development that you're trying to create? Do they get working within the master plan? Do they want it? Do they want to get up every day with their ass on fire to make this everything that it can be, and use every resource that we could use to make sure that this is a success? And then finally, do they have the capacity and the relationships to execute? Do they have the capacity from a capital perspective? Do they have the relationships from an employer perspective network and other users that help to create this mixed-use environment and this E-district, everything that we wanted? So I will end there and open for questions, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Mayor, please.
Greetings, Chad. Welcome. Good to see you.
Good to
Hey,
see you.
are you happy with the DPZ plan? I kind of heard you allude to it a little bit, that you could work within it, or
Yeah,
what's your thoughts?
We certainly believe in the bones of that plan. I mean, we use the word spirit, but ultimately, I think the question was asked, I mean, by you, Commissioner Strohberger, is like, what does the spirit mean? Well, the spirit means is, I think, that we're grounded in that plan, but if we think that a high-level design is going to be just hard and fast, everything that we need to be successful, I think that is a little maybe far-reaching, but how to work within that plan, and certainly that's where I say that we're partners. We're coming to you with any changes of that plan. But I think, you know, what it really boils down to, again, from a DPZ perspective, is having that mixed-use beating heart of Beulah approach, and then having that commitment to the E-district, which is the original intent of this plan to create jobs. So we've already, at a high level, spoke with DPZ and about bringing them back in and thinking about how there may be some changes. But I mean, I think, again, the bones is there. I mean, I think certainly the bones are there.
And in fairness, Chad, to what I've asked the previous two presenters, in your contract, what's the number that you're offering?
$40 million.
40 million? Is that negotiable, or is that hard?
We started in our underwriting and financial modeling at a number that started with a 3, we tried to put our best foot forward with the $40 million number. I'm not saying that we're not willing to listen and to talk, but that number does come from a place that I feel that the developer can be successful. Excuse me. So the number wasn't just, you know, thrown out. I mean, we're not interested in a bidding war. We're interested in putting a number out for it that we can execute on. The other thing that I would really ask the commission to consider is the certainty of execution. It's one thing to say a number. It's another thing to actually make sure that we believe that we're ready and willing to execute on that number. Now, does that mean that we won't listen to a conversation? We'll listen, but we're pretty sound at $40 million.
And that includes the 270 for the light industrial, correct?
Yes, sir, it does. Part of our positioning in conversations with PEDC and Florida West is that as we get into the plan, and as we have control, and obviously having control of the property through a binding contract allows us and gives us the comfort to spend the means, the time, and the resources to dig in further. And if we find tools in the toolbox leveraging, other folks like PEDC and Florida West, and if there is another way to go about this, we would certainly present that to you and talk about it. But we are prepared to execute on our $40 million for the whole property.
Thank you, Mr. Henderson. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Berry, do you have a comment?
Yeah, thank you. Real briefly, and I know we'll have I suspect, a lengthier discussion this evening, but when you mentioned the, kind of working with DPZ as if you were to go under contract, then you're comfortable expending money, which I certainly understand that. But you're talking about working, considering the master plan and then, kind of working with the board if there may be some tweaks or something to that But you also mentioned working with DPZ, so you would see that, you would anticipate the ability to work with DPZ and have their agreement and their rationale and their narrative to whatever, if some tweaks need to be made, you would
Well, actually, if
anticipate their support in those tweaks, and then that coming to us, right, with their kind of stamp. You would
Yes, sir.
anticipate that?
I mean, even in their, culminating kind of statements and comments on their own plan, they mentioned the fact that as time passes, that the plan could need to be massaged alongside a developer. So we certainly, they have a ton of experience and a ton of resources, not only from their broader background, but with this project specifically in holding charrettes and getting feedback from stakeholders and community users, as well as you guys and other pro-E district folks and jobs folks. So we find that they would be a great partner to go back and assess the plan. I think when we were talking about getting into more of the nuts and bolts of how the infrastructure comes together from a traffic, from a utility perspective, from a master stormwater perspective, as we get into more of those details, that's really where we could help to drive, some of the tweaking, because we want to make sure that the infrastructure is set up for success.
But you would be managing that relationship with DPZ?
Yes, sir.
The group would be?
Yeah, that would be under us. Yes, sir.
Yeah, and then you would anticipate, if you needed 3 acres to be from X to Y or something, you would anticipate managing the relationship with DPZ and then bringing that idea forward with, kind of with their stamp saying, look, this, we understand why this makes sense, some changed conditions over the last 7 or 8 years, whatever the number is exactly, but that's the way you would anticipate the logistical.
That's right. If there's meaningful and changes, for sure, to come back. I think, if we're going to move, a stop sign across the road, I mean, we would certainly, we want to waste anybody's time and resources. But if there's meaningful changes, and there might be, but again, under the, the context of what the bones of the original plan is, we would certainly work with you as a partner and bring that back to you for your.
I guess kind of what I'm saying is, so if you think about the podium being there and, you would be managing that relationship on the,
100%. It's on this side. It's on this side. We are bearing that cost. We are bearing that time and effort. We're a steward of that, and then bringing that back to you if there is material change.
As a kind of finished product, this is what we've, collectively come up with is our idea.
Yes, sir.
Okay, super. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Hoffberger?
How many jobs are you anticipating on creating, and what would you guess the average pay for those jobs would be?
It's a good question, but I certainly don't want to get over my skis. I certainly think at a property this size, if you look at the examples, I mean, even within 60 to 80 acres of a orchestrated E-district, you can create thousands of jobs. So I would anticipate thousands of jobs. We use East Chase as an example at 4,500 jobs at 330 acres. There's 8,700 jobs at Redstone Arsenal. That's 468 acres. So we would certainly believe that we would bring thousands and thousands of jobs, 8,000 or more, and over 540 acres, 68,000 or more over 540 acres. From a pay range perspective in that E-district specifically, we're going to be going after exactly what has been presented to you, and Commissioner May has spoke to earlier of 61,000 or more. We're certainly going to be going after that with great earnest to create those types of jobs in the E-district.
Commissioner Stroberg, I saw your light.
Yeah, is there an equation for how many jobs we should be putting on a property that size?
I think certainly there are formulas and equations, but that also is very relative to what market and submarket that you're in. Obviously, the more dense and the more urban, the more jobs that you would create on a less amount of acres. This being out in the Beulah community, we certainly want to be mindful of what we're trying to stay within the bones of that plan and the density associated with that in some capacity. So we want to make sure that we're orienting to the overall, again, mixed use and E-district. So the E-district site would have a higher density of jobs because it's jobs only. Well, the mixed use site, certainly mixed use commercial could also create jobs, but probably less per acre given that there's a myriad of uses there.
I will say I was told by someone involved in the initial attaining of the property, their goal was 8.5 jobs per acre with an average wage of $65,000 a year. So that would have been 4,590 jobs.
All right, is there any further comments or questions? Well, Chad, and to the whole group, thank you for the presentation. I found it very useful for me, and I appreciate that.
And Mr. Chairman, just to clarify what our intent is going to be this evening, so this is on a discussion item for the administrator's portion?
Yes,
correct?
sir.
Okay. So hypothetically, at least, you know, aspirationally, we could end up this evening giving some direction to Wes and Allison to try to negotiate an acceptable contract with a party. That's your thought for putting it on, so we could act.
I'm only one person, but I would be willing to go forward with that if we could.
That's what, I mean, aspirationally, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's why you put it on the agenda, so we could take action if we
correct.
chose to. Okay.
Do we want to discuss numbers now if we have numbers in mind, or do we want to hang on to that for this afternoon, or what's the protocol for
I'm
that?
open for comment if anyone wants to make it today, or we can wait till this evening.
I'm happy to do whatever the board would like to do. My impression was we would probably just
Do it
take all
tonight.
the discussion and then have our discussion.
I was
Like to
leaning
leave
that way
tonight,
as well, but if you're compelled, I would rather do it this evening. I think we'd have a little bit of decision space. I'm sure some of you guys will. I've talked to everyone multiple times. I will tell you this, I think the county and the board is in a good position. There's a lot of pros here. And for me, I think we're at a point where we need to make a decision with somebody. So we'll see where we end up tonight, but I would like to have further discussion tonight unless there's any further.
So, Mr. Chairman, I mean, you're looking for a motion to accept these projects as presented, to accept them modified?
Well, I think there have to be.
Because I would just like to know the clear goal, and certainly I'm going to yield to Commissioner Stroberg and Commissioner Berry. I mean, it directly affects their districts. But I'd like to, at least if I'm, trying to study before tonight, because this is a major decision, probably the largest land decision that we'll make on this dais in our career, which, is 15 years old to me because it was talked about before I was ever elected with Jim Cronley and trying to make it. I think that it's important as a board that we are lockstep together. I mean, because it is major. I just like to know what the tenets are or where we're trying to get. I know there's still discussion from our economic development partners as it relates to taking out that acreage. And I think all the presenters have presented whole. None of them had presented partial. But I think I'd like to, for my colleagues, know what direction we're going. I can go either way. I can go what's best for this community, but I'd like to, rather than come back and go round and round and round in a circle once again. I mean, even if
I'm willing to go for 10 minutes and everyone say what's important to them on the parameters, and then we know, and then we'll have some guidance for this evening. Do you
Right,
wanna do
yeah,
that?
I mean, I just want to know, I mean, I'm like you, let's get off first base, man. I mean,
All right, let's
even
give
if we're gonna
a
bunt the
couple
ball,
minutes
let's
to
get on
each
base.
person, what's important to them, and then let's wrap it up. All right, Commissioner Berry, do you want to go first?
Sure. I mean, purchase price is a top line number. That's what gets, that's what the headline is in a newspaper or, on the television station. So it's a factor. It's not the overall deciding factor. I think that one of the things that came up in some of the discussions last year was some projected, some economic forecasting and projected revenue that's going to come from the project. I know that some of that data, I would presume some of that data is going to exist related to the Redstone project, related to East Chase project, related to some other projects that JWA has done. I'm sure it exists, related to some projects that Metro has done. I say that because I know it was a factor when we were looking at another developer a year and a half ago, a couple of projects that they had done in Atlanta. Some of the sales tax and the creation for the revenue that was being created for local government was, they were very substantial dollars per acre created there. So that's a factor. The job creation is a huge factor, especially the non-retail, non-service industry jobs. And anything happening inside a building, I'm good with that. I know there's a greater multiplier that's going to come from, and it's going to come from not just aviation type jobs, but any type of manufacturing. The multiplier is going to be greater coming off of those jobs than it is even high wage office jobs. But it's not that great of a multiplier, and what you end up seeing is, if you're talking about $60,000 or $70,000 office jobs, we see the success of that next door and the impact that that has and the multiplier that that's had in our community, and it's substantial. And one of the presenters mentioned, or I think all three of them may have mentioned, and they all three did a very good job. But the partnering, is important to me. It's a partner that does have the financial capacity to execute the contract. I trust that they have the intent to execute the contract, which I had an issue with some discussions that we had last year. I was not comfortable that there was actually the intent for closing on the contract and the county being paid, so that they have the capacity, that they have the intent to actually close, and then that they have the relationships to put well-paid butts in seats on those acres, which is the intent. We have settled for, we've settled for a mixed-use project, and that's okay. And, DPZ, to a person, everybody says they do a fantastic job. So I have to, I have to believe that. So we have a mixed-use product, and but the well-paid butts in seats on the northern half of it is important to me. And I think that there are a couple of the folks that presented today that I would be comfortable that they could put those butts in seats, and that's just a few of the things that are really important to me. But I'm happy to talk some more this evening.
Thank you, Commissioner Ray. Commissioner May, you have some thoughts?
Mr. Chairman, first, let me thank you for your leadership in moving this forward. There are a couple of things. I think I've been pretty consistent, and I've been pretty consistent in supporting my two colleagues who represent those districts, and listening to my friends like Teresa, who know how important it is to residents, because although I don't represent that community, I do have friends, and I have friends that live right on the outside of Outline Field 8, and they're very concerned. I think the number one priority, this started as an economic development project for job creation, to create jobs that were high-wage jobs. I'm excited about a town center, but I certainly recognize that if people can't make at least $60,000, and I like your number, Ashley, 65 actually, we're not going to lower the cost of housing. There's no such thing as affordable housing. It's what you can afford. It's how do we provide people with jobs that provide them an opportunity for an attainable house, a nice house, to live, work, and play like all other citizens. And so to me, number one to me is that job creation, because that was a commitment when sitting down with the Admiral, Freddie Donovan, and Jim Cronley long before this ever became an issue, the opportunity to create light industrial jobs, and we had no more land in Escambia County to do this, and Santa Rosa was beating us to the finish line every time, as they continue to do. And so people have to drive to Santa Rosa County to get a job, and their children end up going to schools, and the schools are better than our schools. And why? It's all based on economics, because they have better jobs. And so people that live in poverty find themselves in poor situations with poor outcomes. And so for me, that's important. And the other thing is, although I'm very respectful to my two colleagues about representing their district, the initial 17, 20 million, whatever million that we invested was all the taxpayer dollars, and all five of us deserve an ROI for our citizens before their investment. No investor or developer is going to put forth money without an ROI to be able to make money. They need to make money. But at the same time, our citizens, we have critical issues within the infrastructure of all of our districts. That bottom line number means a lot. I mean, certainly, I don't want to create a bidding war, but $2 million means a lot. $2.5 million, $3 million means a lot, because for $500,000, I can do a lot of sidewalks, a lot of lights. I can do a lot of small drainage projects in my district. So I'm hoping to get that back. So my three things, obviously it's price, it's jobs, and then it's respect to the citizens who live there and to my colleagues that represent those districts. So those are my 3 points. But at the end of the day, I cannot discard that, the bottom line number is going to be important to me. And that promise of those jobs, the only promise that I ever made was job creation. That's the only promise I've ever made in this whole thing, that I was going to try to get people jobs. And, although we have some good jobs, I mean, $16, $17 an hour jobs don't allow for people to live there. I mean, and so what are we going to do, bus people in like we bus them downtown? I mean, because they can't afford to live, and they can work, but they can't live, water color, it don't matter. I mean, if people can work there, they ought to be able to live there. And so, to me, how do we coordinate that? And so that's just going to be important to me that I can support. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner May. Commissioner Stroberger?
So second meeting for me. and we're talking about decision space, and I'm going to be making a decision pretty quickly. I've met with everybody, Ryan, Fred, and his group, and Ashton and Chad, and I think we've got great potential here. I think what we have in front of us looks great. I think they'll build something beautiful. I think I told all of you that I'm not as interested in the purchase price of the land. I know that we'll get what we need for it. I'm more interested in what's going to happen out there and how, I'm thinking of it as a homeowner or somebody looking for a home. Would I want to live there? Would I want to live there? That's how I look at it. I want something that the residents there would love to continue to live there next to. So that's what I'm looking at, because I know that we'll get what we want for that property. I know the original intent was to create jobs. I still would like to reevaluate the viability of light industrial, how much we actually need out there, and what we can really bring out there. I brought up workforce earlier with Danita because I'm concerned that we don't have the trained workforce to bring some of those jobs that we want here. But I think if we build something beautiful that people want to live, we could bring those jobs. We can bring those jobs then, because I want those jobs. I mean, this is the cradle of naval aviation, and I'm a man of a certain age, so I get emotional sometimes for no reason. But I came here. It's the cradle of naval aviation and the home of the Blue Angels, and I want it to always be that. I want it to always be that, and I want it to be a place we all want to keep living at. We got the hospitals, the universities, and the colleges. We got the naval base. We have the tourism. We should be fat and happy here in Pensacola. And I want us to all be happier. That's what I want. I want our happy index to just peg the scale. Okay, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for jobs too. I'm looking for all those things. I think the developers that we have the bandwidth to do all those things that we want. If we have to make a decision tonight, I think I'm prepared to make the decision. If we had a little bit more time, I might make a different choice. I don't know. Maybe we get other choices. I don't know that either. But I'm happy with the presentations we had. Thank you very much for everybody.
Thank you, Steve, and your happy index is always high. Yes, if you'd please go.
Be happy, live in good places, have a good job, right? So for me, top priority would be jobs. So I would like to see some guarantee on jobs and the average wage for those jobs. Allison can probably work that in with some legal magic into the contract, maybe. I would also like to see a higher dollar down, something close to maybe 5% down on that goes hard within 180 days, just to make sure that we do have a partner that's serious about that. So those would be my priorities.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Hoffberger. So I really, like I started to mention earlier, I appreciate the players in the room that are committed to this. But the defining factors, I'm a numbers guy. That's what I do. And I'm not talking the final price. I look at some of the stuff like the board has struggled with over the last 2 years. Should we sell the whole property or split it up? And I'll just put out there, I was on record thinking we should sell the whole property. But I'd like to see where PEDC has a role with whoever gets the bid. I think we pay PEDC a lot. They have a function. I would like to see some sort of marriage with whoever gets the bid with PEDC, because it's important to me that we utilize them, and they've been very passionate about their role and what they could do, and I don't know how we could work that, but that's something that would be important to me. Deliverables are obviously important, and timelines. And as I mentioned with you, Chad, your timeline was a little longer than the rest. I would like that to either change or say why. we couldn't get there. I also just agree with what Commissioner Hoffberger says. I like a larger down payment if we're not going to get more in overall price. I think the commitment factor there is a little bit more favorable for us to invest in whoever gets it. So I like that as well. And jobs obviously are important. I know that. We all know that there's 1,000 people a day moving into Florida. The problem is the local people that are from here can't buy the houses. So we have to have more housing and good jobs. And the last thing I want to say is I do agree with Commissioner May. This is a community county project. It's going to affect Commissioner Stroberger's district and the people of Beulah, and we've heard from them, and I think we're trying to make the spirit or most of the things that we can with them. But he's right. The price does matter to people in Warrington, in Beach Haven, in Oakville. They're not going to go out there. They're not going to get out there. But they may be able to get something out of that in their community. So price isn't everything, but as a commissioner that has a very diverse district, I understand when I go to some places in District 2, they're going to say, what does OLF8 have to do for me? And I want to share with them that it's a community project. So a lot of good things here. I appreciate what everyone's done. Hopefully tonight, I don't know if we'll get there or not. But I can tell you it's going to get there soon. I'm pushing that way because we've been doing this for 2 years, and I think it's time to make a decision.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
if someone was gauging everything that Commissioner Hoffberger said, Schroller, you and Commissioner Berry, I agree. I mean, I would be raising my hand to vote. I mean, in an ideal world, I want to thank our presenters because in an ideal world, we would have put out an RFQ and RFP, listed our criteria and let people submit it, told them what we wanted, gave them the plan. It was almost unsolicited. So it's hard to compare apples to apples and oranges to oranges on an unsolicited because we didn't give them the guidelines, I mean, so probably, in hindsight, we probably should have had a consultant and put out an RFQ and RFP and for people to come in with qualifications, guidelines, the plan, and the best presentation or the best skill sets should have been the one that should have been awarded. But I agree with you, and I think PEDC and Florida West has a role. I think government has to get out of the development business. We're not developers. It's not what we do. I mean, we'll be here in perpetuity, hours and hours and hours trying to make a decision. And in the words of Gene Valentino, you got to give it to your subject matter expert or break the gavel, whichever one you want to do. But I mean, listen, I mean, all of us do real estate. I do real estate, but not to the level that these guys have to do it. So to me, we have to have the experts, the consultants, those who know how to do it. We just can't do it. I mean, in my opinion. And so I'm certainly glad to be a policymaker, glad to make a hard decision, what's in the best interest of, all of Escambia County, but particularly our districts. Like you said, it is important because everyone has played a part in it. And so I think that we're there. And Commissioner Stroberger, you second me. If you need time to make a large decision, I've been on it 15 years, you would not find me not supporting you for not making a decision in 2 meetings when we've been on this ride for 15 years. You know what I mean? And so we don't want to make a mistake. And so I don't want to get to the point where it's from my position that we put a gun to someone's head and say, you got to make a decision. And I want all 5 of us to be able to come together in harmony to make a decision that's best for everybody. And if it means a pause for you, you certainly have my support. And I only say these things so we'll know where we're voting tonight because we can't talk outside of these chambers.
Well, if you give me more time, I promise I won't cry.
I think it's time to end this meeting.
Yeah, if we go any longer, I'm going to cry.
Thank you for everyone's time today. If there's no further business, we'll reconvene at 4:30 for the public forum.